And we are live. Welcome again to another Super Galactic Saturday. I am Jerry Sr. with Jerry Jr.
Good morning.
And we're here today on a beautiful Saturday morning. Although over here it's a bit overcast. We had a little bit of light drizzle. The rain won't go away for some reason, even though we're in spring. It keeps coming back. It doesn't want to leave yet. Which I'm not complaining because I think we need more rain in California.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, so I'll take it. But any day above ground is a good day. So today is a good day, and I'm thankful for it. And we got a few things we're going to be talking about. We actually had a nice debate, so to speak, before we started recording. I actually forgot we weren't recording yet, so we're going to try and recreate that debate now during this
It's
recording.
a
So we'll
it's a
see.
trend.
But yeah, we get caught up in our conversation. But yeah, thanks for checking us out. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And if you're listening to the recording, thanks for listening. Thanks for engaging. Feel free to comment and tell us your thoughts. Tell us what you think. We do our best to reply to all the comments, so feel free to comment. We'll try to get back to you ASAP, and we appreciate your support. So, and the first thing we're going to be talking about during our weekly recap, um, Star Wars. Apparently, there was a re-release of Episode 3, right? Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, it was such a big deal. They made a trailer for the release. I didn't know.
Really nice, nice.
Yeah, hold on a second. I got it right here.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I didn't know they were. I mean, it's the 20th anniversary of the first time it came out. And I saw it when it came out, and I liked it. It was good.
Let's
Yeah,
see what the trailer looks like.
yeah. Let's check it out.
I feel lost. This war is destroying the Republic. I'm not the Jedi I should be. I want more. And I know I shouldn't.
You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.
That was pretty epic.
Okay.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
Good.
they came out. They took this very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent movie. It had some bits in it that were kind of like, come on, man. But
All right, but here's the thing. So obviously, the prequel trilogy is the Star Wars that I grew up with.
right,
Um, and Revenge of the Sith is arguably the best movie in the prequel trilogy, mainly because it felt the most like classic Star Wars in comparison to the first two. And I say that because, like the first movie, what was it? Not a New Hope.
the first of the
The
prequels.
first prequel movie, yeah, Episode one.
Yeah, that was.
I'm gonna just say episode one. But episode one, there's
Yeah,
a larger focus on like politics and stuff like that, and there's the whole people always make the joke of like trade routes and stuff like that. Yeah, kids want to hear
yeah,
about trade routes.
it was a bit bland. That's true.
Yeah, and like, but the most memorable part was the pod racing, obviously. And then episode two, Attack of the Clones, I think that was right what it was. I remember that being okay, but Revenge of the Sith, that's for like, you know, things
Well,
kicked up to 11.
Yeah, well, that's where we saw the actual transformation of Darth Vader, right?
Yeah,
And that's what we were all waiting for. I mean, and I think that's why too, because I know for me, having watched the originals, right, the original trilogy, it's like that's all I really wanted to see was his transition.
yeah, yeah.
And to me, that could have been one movie, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, it could
The
have
fact
been.
that it was three, I guess he tried to do
I
another
mean,
trilogy,
the original
right?
Star Wars could have been one movie. I don't think that was.
No, it couldn't have been. No,
Yeah, it could. It could.
no,
If
no,
there was
no, it
the
couldn't.
first movie concluded with the Death Star being
Being
destroyed.
exploded, right?
They saved the day technically.
Right. But he still had to finish his journey of becoming a Jedi. That's why it couldn't have been three. Maybe you could
I mean,
argue
that's
two,
true.
but it definitely could have been reduced to one. So that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I could agree that
I'm just saying
the original
the
trilogy
problem wasn't that it should
could
have been
just be
one
two
movie.
movies.
It's just those movies were like, I guess, bloated with stuff that a lot of people didn't really care about.
Um, well, I'm gonna
But
disagree with that, but what I'm saying is I can agree that you can reduce it down to two movies, but it can't be reduced to one. That's for sure because of Luke's journey. That's kind of what I'm saying. You
I
understand?
get that. Yeah.
There's a true story arc happening in all three movies that carries through. So that's why the three are pretty justified. But with these prequels, it's kind of like the first movie was just a lot of setup, really. Even the fact that Anakin was sort of this immaculate conception, which I think is absurd. I don't think he should have ever done that.
Yeah.
I think it should have just been you just kept his parentage a mystery. I mean, even with his mom is fine, but she could have been like, I don't know who the father is, and you just take that as you will. You understand? Like it
All
didn't
right.
have to be one day I was pregnant. It's like okay, it's like I understand the whole forest and all that, and he was trying to create this sort of mythos, right? I just feel like, in my opinion, that kind of fell flat to me. Kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
like you're trying to make a Christ figure that isn't an actual Christ figure. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
kind of silly. So I think it should have just been left as a mystery versus because then maybe you could have looped it around where maybe it was Palpatine. I always thought about that. Like, why didn't he just connect her to Palpatine?
That's true.
Or
Yeah.
Palpatine is the father, or a some type of sibling of Palpatine, or a son of Palpatine. Something like that, where it could have been more plausible, and now you have this sort of full circle. Where it's like right, like
Yeah.
like that would to me would have been way more compelling. That he does have an actual father, and it's a father that's a Sith,
That's
right?
true.
And and it didn't have to be something that was sanctioned, so to speak. I'll leave it at that, keep it clean. But you understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of things you could have done with that. The whole immaculate thing I thought was kind of like, so that movie, I feel like wasn't a necessary movie. Other than to say, oh, Anakin used to be kind of like Luke, right? Which we kind of suspected that. I mean, the fact that he was his father, we knew he was a Jedi at first, right?
Yeah.
So, but I would rather just show him. I think they should have started with the second movie, where
Yeah.
he's already a Jedi or a Jedi in training. He's still a Padawan, but he's trying to grow up, right? He's trying to take the reins and be his own man and, not be a Padawan anymore, right?
I think one thing that saves the prequel series is the Attack of the Clones series, like the actual cartoons and
Yeah,
stuff like
that's
that.
true. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Because that's what I remember
Yeah.
Anakin from the most. Him
Yeah, and it's so
basically
well
doing stuff
done.
like that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That kind of saves it a bit because it gives you a little more lore, to build on.
But also, I think it gives you better characterization of those characters. As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does. You tend to kind of connect to them a little bit better. So yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's pretty nice. They did about 52 million worldwide with this re-release. Not bad. That's actually pretty awesome. I think some were saying that it's better than, or at least as good as, the more recent Disney Star Wars stuff, right? And I guess I don't know. I'm not sure what I haven't looked up their box office, but that'd be interesting to find out if like A New Hope, not A New Hope, The Force Awakens, right? If that's
Well,
something that was, because I thought The Force Awakens did pretty good, right?
yeah,
When
the
they
first movie and
Yeah,
the sequel.
yeah,
Yeah,
with
so,
the Disney versions or whatever, and even Rogue One I think did well. And actually, Rogue One to me is objectively a good movie. I like it.
yeah.
I admit I didn't like it at first when I
Oh, I
first
loved it. It's my favorite of the new Star
I
Wars.
didn't care for it, but yeah, upon rewatching it, I actually rewatched it on stream because we saw it in the theaters, and then I rewatched it on I think it was Netflix or Disney Plus, one of them, and I actually enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. I don't know why I didn't care for it initially, but rewatching it, I thought, oh, I actually like this. This is good. So I think maybe I went in with some preconceived ideas, you know, about what it should have been. Maybe I don't know, but I know I didn't care for it upon my first watch, but watching it a second time, I actually liked it. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. But I wanted to show this critical drinker video about it, mainly because he brings up a really important point that I think a lot of people are missing. And I'll link the original video in the comments
Okay.
because I think he brings up a really important point about the legacy of Star Wars. What I'm saying.
Dead. That's something you. Star Wars is dead. That's something you've probably heard many times over the past few years, and it's not hard to see why. The sequel trilogy started out strong, only to turn into an unmitigated disaster. There hasn't been a new movie in almost 6 years, and practically every new show released on Disney Plus has either been a critical or commercial flop, or both. And like anyone hurtling towards their 50th birthday, Star Wars seems to be going through a bit of an identity crisis these days, desperately trying to reinvent itself into something newer and cooler. Which leads to the very obvious question: what even is Star Wars now? Is it a feminist power fantasy? A lightweight adventure for little kids? A dark, gritty political thriller with sci-fi trappings? Or one person's thinly disguised sexual fetish wrapped up in lightsabers and spaceships? What Star Wars?
So I mean, he's
I like
Let's-
the critical drinker, man.
so if you he's kidding, but he's also not kidding. If you listen to the interviews with
Leslie Headland and all that. Yeah.
it
It's
becomes painfully obvious that she needed therapy and not a writer's room.
Wars is meant to be now,
Right.
but one thing it isn't is successful. Andor, the latest addition to the Disney Plus lineup, cost $650 million in total and pulled in less than 2 million viewers in its first 3 days. Oh, come on! Jesus, I've had videos that get more views in the same time frame. Not only is it not making money for Disney, but even worse than that, Star Wars has lost every shred of cultural relevance it once had. People just don't talk or even care about it anymore, and the only time they do mention it is when some big controversy erupts. Take Andor, for example. The only discourse of any kind around that show is because of a 2-minute scene where an Imperial officer tries to use the Force on a young woman. The Acolyte was talked about, but for all the wrong reasons, to the point where Disney themselves had to step in and confirm that never again would they inflict another series of that absolute catastrophe on us. Meanwhile, Skeleton Crew, which was pretty much free of controversies, was also more forgettable than a cheese sandwich and disappeared like a fart in the wind.
it's like
I actually had
movies
to
in
look it up
space.
to confirm that yes, it did indeed exist, and I watched it, and it cost 130.
Yeah.
Goonies in space sounds like a great idea, but
It does. It does.
they didn't make it look cool. Or
I mean, I did listen. I'm among those that just completely gave up on Disney and Disney Plus, so I didn't bother watching it because I was
Yeah.
watching I can always forget the show now because it's been so long since I watched it. it's about the former stormtroopers and
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the whole Order 66 didn't work on them, right?
yeah,
So they're still of their own minds, right? The free
right.
will. And so they didn't murder the Jedi. They're actually like, yo, this is crazy, right? So they actually end up starting to help the rebels versus, and
Yeah,
it was actually a great show. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Um, but yeah, with all the other stuff like the Acolyte and even them kind of messing up the Mandalorian and you know, Boba Fett, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of done.
yeah. I
It
mean,
just
that's
wasn't enough to care anymore. So yeah, I never saw that particular show, and I heard that it was okay. They still managed to put some check boxes in there, but I don't think it was a big deal. So,
yeah,
but yeah, even when it's good, it's like that's the problem, right? Even when it's good, because of all the bad, right? Because of the lack of confidence in this IP, you, there's no more good faith, right? It's like I just can't trust you anymore. So even when there's good, you put out something that's like objectively good. I can't enjoy it. I'm not going to bother because I don't want to risk it. You know,
yeah. I mean,
and
that's their fault.
that's the problem. Yeah, I agree. It is their fault, and that's the problem, right? It's like so then shows that are objectively good, you know, they fail, and so that means whoever's a part of that show, the crew, the animators, VFX guys, even the directors and the writers room, they don't get their kudos, right? They don't get to shine, and so it's really messed up what they've done because of personal agendas and politics. You know,
Yeah,
$30 million to make. It wasn't always like this, you know. Ask any random person on the street who Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, or Han Solo is, and I'm pretty sure they'll be able to tell you, even if they've never even watched a Star Wars movie before. Ask that same person who Poe Dameron, Finn, The Mandalorian, or Cassian Andor is, and you'll likely be met with the kind of vacant, dead-eyed stare that would make Billie Eilish look like a model of bright, optimistic intellect. With a string of commercial failures like this and a total collapse in cultural relevance, you can't exactly blame people for concluding that yes, Star Wars as a brand is indeed dead. But then something kind of strange happened. Revenge of the Sith was re-released into cinemas to mark the 20th anniversary of the film's premiere, which itself is nothing particularly unusual. Lucasfilm has a long history of re-releasing older Star Wars movies to mark important anniversaries. It's a nice way to revisit old classics, and for younger fans, it's a chance to experience Star Wars as it was meant to be seen, on the biggest of big screens. But this one was different. Revenge of the Sith raked in more than $42 million worldwide in its first weekend, rocketing up the box office charts like it was some commercially viable new release, instead of a novelty trip down memory lane for hardcore fans only. It would be like some old heavyweight boxer coming out of a 20-year retirement and still being able to kick ass against top-level contenders. And let's not kid ourselves here, this is not some cinematic classic we're talking about. Revenge of the Sith was the deeply flawed conclusion to a not particularly good trilogy, and the audience perception of it has gone through more twists than a David Fincher movie over the years. At first, everyone loved it because they were hyped by the Star Wars legacy and the pretty visuals, but then came the YouTube video essay era, where it became fashionable to make hour-long videos shitting all over the prequels, and now that we're trapped in the festering swamp of the Disney era, the rose-tinted glasses are coming out and people are starting to look back more favorably on the prequel trilogy. It's all relativism, and it's all colored by what happens to be going on at the current time. But all of this is to say that Revenge of the Sith wasn't and still isn't a particularly great Star Wars movie, but people flocked to see it anyway. Why? Because it's the last movie to come out that was still unquestionably Star Wars. Flawed it might have been, but it still embodied the core elements of what Star Wars was supposed to be about. The epic adventure, the hero's journey, the struggle between good and evil, the family melodrama, and the love story at its core. Simple stuff, but sometimes the simplest ideas are also the most timeless. On the other hand, the most timely and current day of ideas are likely to become the most divisive and dated. If Disney are looking for an answer to the ongoing question of what Star Wars is supposed to be, well, There it is. This right here is what people want, for better or worse. Star Wars apparently isn't quite as dead as we all thought, and fans do still want more of it. The only problem is they just don't want your version of it. Maybe that is something you should think about very, very carefully. Oh, yeah, and just a heads up that we're down to the last few days on our Kickstarter campaign for Trial by Fire. The response has been absolutely amazing, and we've raised over £250,000 already.
Yeah,
And
you
now
can
that
stop
we're
it.
on the home straight,
He's just promoting his campaign, which I encourage you to support. I supported this movie, so yeah, check it out. But yeah, he makes great points. It's like it's not a perfect movie, it's definitely flawed, but that's beside the point, right? It's still objectively better than what's been put out so far by Disney Star Wars, and that's really at the core of it. It's like I'd rather get another, prequel trilogy, right? That's imperfect, right? But it's a good faith effort to tell us a great story and continue the mythos of Star Wars, right? To continue the story, maybe give us new characters, that's great as long as it's done in good faith. And I think the problem with Disney Star Wars, for the most part, is none of what they've done has been in good faith, right?
No.
They're literally using Star Wars as a vehicle to promote an ideology, right? And it's so blatant and it's so obvious and lazy, right? And it's just turned audiences off over time. Like it's like, The Force Awakens was kind of like, okay, we'll go in with, you know, no expectation, like no, preconceived, like we're just gonna see what they do, right?
Yeah.
And at first, it seemed like they were going to do something kind of awesome when they presented Finn, right? They introduced us to Finn being a former stormtrooper. I thought, oh, that's different. Wow. And it's a new character, and he has a different story arc, and they're implying that he might become a Jedi. That's fire, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's fire because that's never been done, right? So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. That made me want to watch it. And then they did nothing with it.
So, but here's the thing, and another thing that, it isn't the point that I was looking for, but it still ties into it. It was meme historian, I think that brought up the point, but people, when it comes to like, I guess, consuming a product, right? There's a difference between consuming a product and investing in a product, right? Like I'm a firm believer that your greatest investors are your customers, right? That because even Critical Drinker brings it up. It's like everybody, if you ask the average Joe, who Han Solo or Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker is, they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, they're from Star Wars," but they're not going to do the same thing about most of the characters in the new movies because nobody is invested in the new movies. They'll consume the movie when it comes out, but they're not going to invest their time, energy, and money into that franchise, right? That's why nobody's buying the toys. That's why nobody's cosplaying as these characters at conventions.
Right.
That's why those are people invested in the brand, right? Like one thing that Critical Drinker didn't talk about is that when they like the reaction in the theaters, right? There's people were like, not only were they like cheering on really like grim moments in the movie, like when he does the order, was it Order 66?
Order 66, yeah.
Yeah, like people were cheering, and it's like, what? But it's because they know it's
they're anticipating, and it's like there's been a whole culture online around Order 66 and the big fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, right? The high ground, and like it's all become part of
right
meme culture, and that's helped it a lot, right? Because and I think it's because of the contrast between that and what's been currently released from Disney Star Wars, where it's like it's just objectively better.
Right.
So I'd
But
rather
also look at
celebrate
this.
that than, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. But also look, it's like the actors showed up to the theater, right?
Yeah.
To
That's awesome.
thundering applause. Look at this.
Right. Because it's aged well.
Right, but
That's
because
really
no, but even if it didn't age well, it's because people care about
the original
about
IP.
the characters.
Yeah.
Right? Because they gave them something to care about, right?
Right.
Do you think that 20 years from now people are going to be like if John Boyega and I forgot the actor's name, the one who plays Ray, like if they just show up to a theater that they're going to receive the same accolades as this?
Pro-
the theater,
probably
like
not.
a-
Maybe
No.
John Boyega would, just
Yeah,
because
maybe John Boyega.
there's a bit of sympathy for his character. But
Really,
when I say it
it's
aged well, I'm
Jackson.
talking about the IP itself. The movies have aged well, meaning that upon second, third, and fifth and 10th viewings, people have become more like, oh, this is actually good. Like it has flaws, but it's still good. It's still entertaining, and I still like the character. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so when they
Yeah, that's
show
right.
up, people are gonna, yeah, like we like you guys. Like, yeah, great. Because why? Well, your performances aged well, right? And that's the difference between that and current day Star Wars. A lot of what they've put out is that those performances aren't going to age very well, right? We're going to be looking back at a lot of what they're doing and with a lot of cringe. Like, what were they thinking? Like it's going to be stuff that's made fun of, that's tongue in cheek. It's not going to be stuff that's looked at with any type of like true admiration or reverence, right? It's going to be more like we could look at OG Star Wars, right? The first three, and
Yeah.
poke fun at it and have satire and you know and make fun of it and have fun with it. But it's all in good faith and it's all out of a certain reverence for the IP itself, right? Because we're like, yeah, it was
Oh yeah.
good, right? It made us feel a certain way. But that's not going to be the case with the vast majority of more recent Disney Star Wars. Maybe like for me, I can picture something like The Mandalorian, like the first season.
Yeah.
Maybe the first two seasons, where it's going to be looked back fondly, right? Where it's like, yeah, that was dope, right? That was great, and it was, And what part of what made it great was, yeah, there was great performances, and a decent story, but we have familiarity. We had a baby Yoda, basically, and we eventually got Luke Skywalker. You understand? So
Yeah.
it's like that's what makes it satisfying, right? That scene when he shows up and he picks up Grogu, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yo, that's what we've been waiting for, and that's what's so odd about Disney Star Wars. It's like they know what fans want, but they don't want to give fans what they want, and it's like that makes no sense. But you still want fans to support all the other stuff that they don't want, right? No one wants the Acolyte, right? No one wants the Boba Fett show, right? No
Yeah.
one wants that. We wanted the Boba Fett series or movie. We didn't want what you gave us though. And that's the problem. It's like you're giving us what we don't want, right? And holding back what we do. Then you get mad at us. Like you present this, you gaslight us and say we're being bigots or racist for not wanting what we don't want. It's the most ridiculous thing, right? And that's really at the heart of it. It's like, what are you guys doing, right? It's like, and like I said, I don't think it's an accident. I think they're doing it purposely, on the lower level, because they're basically being given a free pass to kind of do what you want. So like someone like a Leslie Heslin is going to just do what she wants, and what she wants is to push feminist, LGBTQ agendas. I mean, that's what she wants. Like that's it. She wants to push that agenda, so she's going to try and do it through a narrative, right? And on a higher level, it's demoralizing. Like they want to demoralize general audiences, and I really do believe that the people in the upper echelon of these organizations, not even necessarily Disney, although I think they may be in Disney as well, but the consultants like the Sweet Baby Inks and these hedge funds, it's like they're doing it because they want to purposely demoralize us. They want to tell you that here's your heroes. Now we're gonna make them look dumb. We're gonna dismiss them. We're gonna make them look weak and pathetic, or we're gonna ignore them altogether. Right? That's I really believe that. 'Cause I'm like this can't just be by accident. you know,
No.
I think on a like I said on a lower level, it's incidental and it's a natural consequence of people being in their bubble, right?
Yeah.
But I think on a higher level, someone is giving them the reins and they know what they're doing. They know, like, I'm going to get, it's like giving a kid a 3-year-old sharp scissors and saying, go run. Right? Like, you know better as the adult,
Right.
right? The 3-year-old doesn't know any better, right? They just go, ooh, shiny scissors, right? Something I wasn't supposed to have. Now I have it. I'm going to run with them, right? Like that's what's happening, right? They're the people that know better, they're like, yeah, they're gonna do what we want them to do. And the people that don't really know any better, but they really believe their ideological nonsense, right? They're gonna use this as opportunity to spew it, thinking that somehow they're being revolutionary. And you're not being revolutionary, you're being annoying. Right? You're being frustrating and you're helping to demoralize a generation of people, right?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate and sad. So, but the success of this re-release, we'll see how it does in the coming weeks. Hopefully, it just be exponentially better and better, right?
I would. I'm
Kind of
curious.
proves that point that
Yeah.
people don't want what you've been giving us. We want this.
I'm curious to see what a re-release of the original Snow White will look like.
Oh, I think it'll do gangbusters. I mean, re-release the original trilogy. It'll hit well over $1 billion.
Come on,
If
Star-
they, if they re-release New Hope right now, you're talking $1 billion, 1.5, like hands down, like no way. Especially if it's the original, not the remaster one where they
yeah, no,
they did
no.
like the CGI stuff. But if they re-release the original, oh, bro, like it's over, right? Because most of us are still here. You understand? Like,
Yeah,
I would go see it in the theaters, see it in like IMAX or something. Yeah, heck yeah, I'll pay a ticket to see that, right? So they
what's
know
funny?
this.
Even
They
even
know
if you say that most of like talking about your generation, right? But here's
Yeah,
the thing:
yeah.
if you're someone who went to go watch The Force Awakens when it came out, you're probably someone who went back to watch the original movies as a result,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
So you've already built that. Because that's what I did after
Mhm.
Force Awakens. I went and just rewatched the original trilogy as a whole because I never watched, the original trilogy in its full up until that point. So
Right.
I did it. I was like, oh, that was actually really cool. Like I understand why people like Star Wars, even though I'm not a big Star Wars fan. But and it's not to say I dislike Star Wars. I'm not a Sonic fan. I mean, I'm not a Star Wars fan in the same way I'm a Sonic fan. You know what I mean? So, but I know people who like have all the books, who have all the games and stuff like that, right? And it's like they're the real fans, and it is what it is. But it's like but people my age would probably connect to the original trilogy a lot better, I believe, than and even the prequel trilogy a lot better than the new movies.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah, they'll definitely reconnect. I mean, it's a timeless story at the end of the day, and that's why it resonates. So, and like I said, even the sequels, you know, they may not be perfect, but they still resonate.
When the sequels, you're talking about the prequel
Star Wars,
saga, right?
Yeah, the prequels. Sorry, yeah, the prequels. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, and like I said, this re-release proves it.
Yeah.
I mean,
But what do you guys think? Did you watch the prequels when they first came out? Do you still think they hold up? Let us know in the comments below. And did you go see the? Let us know if you went to go see the re-release.
yeah, not only that, but what do you think about the original Star Wars? You know, would you go see it if they re-released A New Hope? I'd be curious to find out because I think a lot of people would. Like if this is doing as well as it is, just imagine A New Hope.
Yeah, that'd be nuts.
Yeah, it will be. Listen, I really think it would be like a billion. Like I really think so. Let's keep it conservative. Like maybe 400 or 500 million.
It'd be a slap in the face, but yeah, it would make the money.
Yeah, it would. It would definitely make the money. So, I mean, and the same goes for Disney Marvel. Like if they re-release, Endgame, I think people will go back and watch it again. Infinity
Yeah.
War, Endgame. Yeah, I mean, it's probably do another billion. Who knows? It's definitely to get up there, right? Because we want what was good, right? And especially Infinity War really holds up well. Endgame does as well. It still has its problems, but overall,
I mean, it's all one big movie. Let's be real.
yeah. I mean, yeah, technically, it definitely is. So, but yeah, so yeah, tell us what you think because I'm curious to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of I was kind of surprised that they just didn't put it directly to streaming or do some kind of like Blu-ray release. They actually released it to theaters. So
No, I'm glad they did that. I'm
Yeah.
glad they did that
because it's just kind of interesting. Maybe
because it makes a statement.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like maybe it's a sign of them coming to their senses and a show of good faith to the audience. Like, hey guys, we know you really like this, so I don't know. We'll see in the days and months ahead. But yes, I was a bit surprised they did re-release it. So that's interesting. So we'll see. Yeah, I was kind of pleasantly surprised, but yeah. So, but yeah, speaking of successful movies, successful box office, Thunderbolts is out. Marvel, speaking of Disney, and I haven't watched it yet. I'm not sure.
I'm
I think
not
I was
going
just
to
gonna
watch
wait.
it.
Yeah, I was gonna wait till it comes out on streaming or something, But I'm actually hearing a lot of kind of mixed reviews from just in general from people on Twitter and X and Facebook saying they've gone to see it, and it's kind of like many are like, "Hey, I actually liked it. It was a decent movie. It's not perfect, but it was watchable." To it was garbage, right? So it's kind of all over the place.
I mean, that doesn't sound like it's all over the place. It just tells me that the movie is mediocre.
right at best, right? It's
Like-
probably mediocre, and I'm
Like
just
if your best comment is that the movie is watchable, then it's not a good movie.
right, but no, but some are saying it is good. That's what I'm saying. There's some who are like, I liked it, right? Like I liked the movie, it was good. And others are, saying well, it was entertaining, but it wasn't perfect. Like that's what I'm saying. It's kind of all over the place. It's not just it's completely trash or it's awesome. It's like, actually there's no awesomes, but there's mostly it was pretty good.
I know there's no
It
awesomes.
was pretty good, or it wasn't as bad as I thought. That kind of stuff, and that's interesting to hear and to see. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I'm kind of not invested as much as I used to be. So I take it with a grain of salt.
I was never invested. Let me explain something. I stopped caring about Marvel movies after Thor 2. Thor 2 came out in 2013. So that was almost 20 years ago.
That's like way back.
Yeah. And that's not to say I haven't watched any Marvel movies since then. That's to say I'm not invested in the franchise. I'll watch movies that I know I'm gonna like Captain America. Like I like the Captain America movies. I like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But almost none of them after the Avengers I saw in the theaters because I just didn't care enough.
Right.
The only exception was Guardians of the Galaxy. I saw in theaters.
Yeah, I've watched all the Guardians of the Galaxy in theaters. I've watched all the Thors in theaters, and I've watched pretty much all the up to Endgame. Basically, I've watched in theaters. After that, I just didn't care.
Right.
It just got objectively worse. So I never bothered to, So with this one, I mean, I'm hearing that it was surprisingly good by a lot of people, and that's fine. If you liked it, that's great. Um, I think they're the usual suspects, so far as YouTube critics are kind of saying it's terrible. That's fine as well if they don't like it. So I don't know. Like I said, I'd rather just wait and see it on streaming or something. You know, just because I don't trust Disney anymore. So why
I mean,
why am I
if
gonna?
you really want to watch Thunderbolts, just go watch Suicide Squad.
Well, which one?
That's all it is. The
Which one?
second one. The second
Yeah,
one.
it's definitely the second one. The first one was terrible. Yeah, the James Gunn Suicide Squad was actually pretty good. Although I think it's very different from Suicide Squad. I don't know.
I know, but I mean, is it that much different? Because it just looks like
Probably not.
Marvel's. Yeah, it just looks like Suicide Squad, but it's all Marvel characters.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, why haven't they done? Well, no, we've already. I was gonna say X-Men. Like, why haven't they done X-Men yet? But I guess they're working towards that. They're releasing the Fantastic Four, but they're already kind of messing that up. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying, man. It's like I hear about Thunderbolts and hear like, hey, it's actually decent. It's like, okay, but then I see the Fantastic Four trailer and I see some of these articles drop, and they're still talking about pronouns and stuff, and feminist talking points, and it's like, what? And they're gender swapping characters, and it's like, okay, so it's just more of the same. Like it's just more of the same. So that makes me not trust them anymore. Like, okay, so yeah. Yeah, you understand? Like, so even if they release something that is objectively good, um, it's like Fantastic Four looks visually good, right? It looks decent. Um, but there's always that asterisk, right? But we're seeing the same old, right? So Sue Storm's going to take the lead. We got a female Silver Surfer. They're toning down. I
Talking
can't
about
think of his
Johnny
name.
Storm.
Yeah, Johnny Storms. Sorry.
So,
Toning down
here's
Johnny Storm's
the thing
character.
about
It's
that.
like,
Here's the thing about that. So they did the same thing. So this was the same argument with when they did the live action version of Avatar, The Last Airbender, right? They changed Sokka's character so that he wasn't sexist, whatever. But if you watch the original Avatar, right, the show, his whole character arc revolved around, uh, growing outside of what he knew from his village, right? Because his whole thing was he had to become basically the warrior protector of the village because his father was off fighting in the war against the Father Nation. So he
right.
really had to behave and act a certain way in order to be, man, basically. And then he meets this when they go into I think it was the Earth. No, it wasn't the Earth Nation, but they go they venture outside of the Fire Nation, and he ends up meeting this like ninja clan of like female warriors, and they humble him, but he also they don't disrespect the character, but he ends up learning like, oh, okay, like they're also warriors, right? And so he ends up respecting them. He ends up being humble enough to ask them to train and learn how to fight from them. And eventually, one of them one of them becomes his girlfriend. So it's like, it's like, wow, him being humble and being a good person ended up, he ended up getting the girl in the end. So it's like, but obviously the point wasn't him getting the girl. The point was him learning about life outside of the water tribe that he grew up in. Right. But part of his character arc meant that he had to be, sort of a cocky jerk, right? But that's the thing. It's like they're trying to to neuter characters in order to make them more digestible for people when it's their flaws that help people relate to these characters, right? Look
Right.
at Woody. Look at Woody. Woody was like from Toy Story, obviously. Woody
Yeah.
was the head honcho. He was sort of self-centered. Like his job, like obviously his job was to care about the other toys, but he always knew that he was the favorite toy, and he acted like it. And
Right.
it was when Buzz Lightyear came about that his true nature started to show. He was egotistical, he was jealous, and all that stuff, to the point where he almost gets Buzz killed. Right?
Well, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, I know. I'm making a point, but yeah, it's like, yeah, and obviously that was a toned down version from their original plan with Woody, but they still kept those elements in because him being a jerk was necessary for his character arc. And so
Right.
if you're not willing to make characters imperfect to create dynamic, like what business do you have? Like that defeats the purpose of like telling a story.
I agree. And to take it further, it's not just about not being a jerk or not being cocky or not being, because like use Woody as an example. Um, Woody was still the same at the end of it, right? He was
Oh
still
yeah,
confident and cocky, and right. The problem was jealousy,
right,
right? And feeling that he was being replaced and dealing with that and realizing that he wasn't going to be replaced, right? That, there was enough love for everyone, right?
right.
And the reason why I point that out is what they're doing with a lot of male characters, and particularly in Fantastic Four with Johnny Storm, is they're saying him being cocky and arrogant is problematic, right? Like being a confident male, right? Confident, competent, and even arrogant to some degree is problematic, right? And they're trying to soften that. And that's what I'm saying is the problem. It's like it's one thing to say, like you described, going through, being sort of cocky and arrogant and going through this character arc where in the end he had to kind of humble himself a little bit, right?
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, because you're being arrogant about something you have no experience with. So you have to get that experience and understand and appreciate to say, okay, now I get it, right?
right.
But your qualities that made you who you are still present, right? So
Absolutely.
he was still a
Yeah,
confident, competent, and even cocky character by the end of the arc. But
yeah,
he learned a lesson of like humility in the sense of appreciating his power and appreciating the dynamics of his world, right? And that's a classic tale, right? But what's happening in more recent, storytelling is a dismantling of masculinity in the male character, and literally just pointing out being a man is a bad idea. You have to be a certain kind of man, and it can't be one that's confident, competent, or arrogant. And that's the problem, right? And so that's kind of the underlying sort of subtext, you know, and that's what makes it problematic. It's one thing to say, oh, we're just not going to make him as cocky. It's like, well, okay, but that's is part of his character. That's literally the nature of his character, right? Is that he is a confident, competent, and yes, arrogant person, right? That plays into his personality and how he operates with all the other characters. It plays against the other character types, right? So if you're changing, what's basically a core element of his character, you're also by default changing the other core elements of the other characters. You see what I mean? So now they're not the characters that we know from the book. It's just like the first Fantastic Four back in, what was that, 2012 or 20, I can't remember. No, it's like 2009. I don't know, but you know what I mean, with Jessica Alba and all that, and
yeah,
what's his name, Chris Evans, right? He was the Human
yeah.
Torch. Yeah, that one wasn't bad, right? Especially looking back, it holds up pretty well. But the biggest issue was Mr. Fantastic, because Mr. Fantastic wasn't Mr. Fantastic. right? He was a sort of beta, milk toast, right? But that's not Mr. Fantastic from the comics, right? Even from the animated versions that I remember growing up, right? He
Yeah.
was always confident, competent, very intelligent, somewhat aloof, right? It's very stoic. That was his nature, right? But he was also brilliant, and he was also very brave, you know. And he took the lead when it was necessary. He always came up with the plans that to bring the team together and use their specific gifts, right, to save the day, you know. And it's like we kind of barely got that in the first movie, right? Because they focused on him kind of just being this high school nerd that never got over it, that didn't get the girls in school, blah blah. And it's kind of like, okay, I guess, like
Yeah.
I don't remember him being hung up on that kind of stuff. I remember him just being a brilliant scientist, and his biggest issue is being too aloof or stoic for Sue Storm, right?
Yeah.
But then she comes in and she helps to humanize him a bit, right? And that's kind of the point. That was like their dynamic, right? And even Johnny Storm, it's like his team sort of helped to complement his weaknesses, which is, being more emotional, or being, you know what I mean, being more open. They come in, they create this family dynamic for him, right? And I kind of feel like that suffered, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's even the second movie is a little better, right? They did a little better with his character, but that was my biggest critique. I was like, yeah, that doesn't feel like, and by extension, all the other characters I think suffered because of that, because it just wasn't, there wasn't that cohesiveness, because he wasn't taking the lead until like third act when they fought Doctor Doom, right? And
Right.
he finally decides to be a leader. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, yeah, but he should have been doing that from the jump, right? So that was my biggest critique, and that's what I'm saying. Like they love to kind of dismantle. I don't know if that was intentional in the sense of like we gotta emasculate him versus just saying, well, we're just gonna go with the familiar trope of the nerd. And I think that may be more
It's probably the latter.
what it was. Yeah, I think so too. I'm not, because, like I said, he did step up eventually, and like I said, the second movie he was a little better, right? He was more of a leader in the second movie. But yeah, it's like, yeah, they kind of, but it doesn't work. It's like you don't like Mr. Fantastic is the trope, so just do Mr. Fantastic. Like you don't have to do um, the Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
Character traits. It's like, yeah, we get that, but that's for a different character. That's not for this character. And that's what I'm saying. So it's not unique, but it seems since then it's like a lot of these movies they tend to pile on that even more, and then injecting sort of this feminist ideology into it as well. It just does it even more now, right? So yeah, it's a little frustrating. It's a little annoying. I think it speaks, but like I said, the lack of success of a lot of these properties is indicative. Like, yeah, a lot of people, whether it's that or just in general, just saying it's just not good, right? they're not responding to it. So in Fantastic Four, having revealed those things, yeah, it's starting to kind of lean towards, I don't think I want to check it out, right? So it went from kind of excited anticipation, that first initial trailer, to maybe not, because it's kind of the same old thing again, right?
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. I mean, I kind of wish they would just leave that stuff alone and just tell a good story. And they can do that. They have the talent to do it. They're just not doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but Sinners, that came out, and I haven't watched that either. But once again, I'm hearing good things. It's getting good reviews, and not only that, but it's an original IP, so it's not based on anything previous, like any books or old TV shows. It's an original movie directed by, I think, written and directed by Ryan Coogler. Um, and yeah, man, I might actually check that out. We'll see. That I'm hearing a lot of good stuff. So um, nice, pleasantly surprised. And this what's interesting about this particular movie is the behind the scenes with Ryan Coogler and how he negotiated his rights to the property. He gave them 25 years, right? And then it reverts back to him. So
I
yes,
don't understand. What?
I'm talking about the movie Sinners.
What do you mean the rights?
The rights to the IP to the movie. Because when studios make a movie, they own the rights to the movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't
You
hear that
understand?
part.
They provide financing and funding, and in exchange they get to own the movie and re-release it, put it on DVD, Blu-ray, merchandise, etc. Right?
Okay.
And so what he negotiated was to get ownership back after 25 years. So they don't own the movie in perpetuity. They're basically licensing the movie from him, and at some
Okay.
point it's going to revert back to his possession, to his estate, right? And that's pretty awesome. It's quite fascinating because I don't think I've seen a deal like that in Hollywood, unless correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only person that I think of that's done something similar, well, actually, yeah, maybe Tom Cruise, right? But Tom Cruise owns the rights to Mission Impossible, so he I think he bought the rights to the IP. So I don't think he's licensing. I think he owns the license. But that's it just shows that that there's still this ongoing shift in the entertainment landscape where creators are getting smart, and they're saying, I'm going to own what I create, right? I'm going to have a vested interest in ownership, and this is another example. So I think that's awesome. I'm very happy, especially knowing that the movie's doing well. That
Yeah.
goes a long way. So that means he'll probably end up making more, whether they're sequels or or just make more movies for the studio, and um, and be able to secure the same deals, right? Like there's another original, it does well, and he owns it outright, right? So that's pretty cool. And I remember hearing about Tyler Perry, when he did um, what show was that? I think it was Meet the Browns.
Okay.
And he what he did was when he was shopping it around, instead of shopping it for a pilot, right, to get funding for a pilot episode, he I think he did the pilot, shopped it around, and then said, if you want it, you need to pay for a season. You need to green light at least one season, right?
Okay.
And the traditional model was, well, we'll green light a pilot, right? Maybe a couple of episodes, at best. That's usually what you would get when it was a brand new show, right? A brand new
Right.
idea. And so his deal was unprecedented because he was like, well, no, we need to do like at least a season, right? And it made sense, right? It's like, yeah, you can't build an audience with one episode. You got, it's like a lot of times certain shows are slow burn, meaning that
Right.
the audience has to adapt to it, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and he got it. I believe it was TNT or something like that. It was one of the cable channels. So TNT or TBS, something like that. And he got it, and he got a whole season greenlit, which was unprecedented, And so now, I mean, I don't know how familiar many of you out there are with Meet the Browns, but it's been going on for a long time now. I mean, I don't know if there's new shows being made, but I
I
know
mean,
lasted
wait, is
for
it still
5 years.
going?
I said I don't know. I don't know if
Oh,
there's new
okay.
shows or if it's just in syndication, but it went on for a good while. Like it's probably at
I
least
only know
5
of the
seasons.
one season.
No, I think it's more than one season. It's at least 4 to 5 seasons, I believe. So it went on for quite some time. So, um, but I'm just saying, of course, he's greenlit other shows, and it's the same model. He usually gets a whole season, and so yeah, it's the landscape's been changing for a while, and this is another indicator of that, where you're seeing that
It's got
creators.
5 seasons?
Yeah,
That's
I think
crazy.
so. You looked it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you it's at least 5 seasons. Yeah,
How did
four
that
or five.
happen?
So,
It's
yeah.
kind of true. It's kind of.
I know it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not a work of art. Like
I know.
it's not like critically
That's why I'm.
acclaimed,
That's why I'm
but
surprised.
it's still. Listen, when it comes to entertainment, it's not always about like critical acclaim, right?
I
Sometimes
mean,
people
I get it.
just want to. Plus, it goes into what I've been hearing about this sort of thing that Netflix does. I guess they've coined it as this sort of type of show that can play in the background. Like it's a background show. It's not a show that you're gonna sit and get some popcorn and watch and get pulled in, right? Like a procedural drama or cop show, right?
Yeah.
Like NYPD Blue, or Law and Order, right? You'll get pulled in, right? You're gonna be fully immersed watching that, right? But something like Meet the Browns, you're not gonna be you're gonna hear a joke here and there, and you give it a chuckle, right? You get maybe one good laugh per show, right? But you're gonna be listening and halfway watching it while you're doing something else, whether it's
Yeah.
goofing around online or on your phone, or you're gonna be making dinner or lunch, you know what I'm saying, like, or bucking around the house cleaning or out in your garage, whatever it is. Like that's kind of what a show like that is for. It's literally just content, right? Now doesn't mean it's a terrible show. I think it's a decent show. It is very it's very
Very
how do you
Tyler
say,
Perry.
yeah, it's, some would say it's kind of lame, or it's I mean, you know what I mean, it's a family show. So
Well, I
it's
mean,
very G rated, if you will. It's a very G rated show, and that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I haven't seen that show in years, but I just,
Yeah, I haven't
I've
either.
seen
Absolutely,
enough
I haven't
Tyler
watched it
Perry
in years.
content to know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You pretty much know, and that's fine. It's cheesy and all that, but you know that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, but that's what I
No,
mean.
it's
It's
not.
not a show that it's gonna pull you in. Although it does have like dramatic aspects to it as well, but I don't think they're that big enough to make you, versus a show. I don't like I said, Law and Order or something, or some other like the Cosby Show. Cosby Show was kind of an event, so that was a show you sat down and you watched. A Different World. That's another like I sat down and watched that show. It wasn't like something that just played, although it can, but I actually really enjoyed watching that. So Living Single, Friends, like those are shows. They could be sort of background shows, but they're also shows you can sit down and like pay attention to and actually just enjoy it. You know, so yeah, it depends. Like, but that's the kind of show I think kind of fits that bill. So I think that's part of the reason why it did so well and lasted as long as it has, right? So yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, it's a lot of things changing. So which I think is awesome. And with Sinners, it's done 186 million worldwide so far, which is pretty awesome. That's really good for a brand new movie. Um, Out of the blue, it's not an existing IP. It's not a sequel or something. It's not based on, as far as I know, it's not based on pre-existing content, right?
Hmm.
And it's doing gangbusters. Um, you know, I think that's really amazing. So I'm not sure what the budget was. Um, maybe 100 million. You know, most likely. Hope I don't even think it was that much, to be honest. It may have
The
been
budget for Sinners.
yeah. I think it was probably less than 100 million. So if so, man, like
It was
that's
90 million US dollars.
90 million. Yeah. See, so that's crazy. That's impressive, man. So you know, that's kind of exciting, to see that. So I'm hoping that means that maybe we're going to see like original movies get made, and yeah, with smaller budgets, but man, with the upside potential is amazing, right? So
I mean,
yeah,
that's
that's
only
pretty,
if Hollywood learns the right lessons from it.
right. I agree. And I think what's going to happen is they won't, right? But independent and smaller studios will.
Probably, yeah.
That's what I think. And when they start seeing the smaller studio, like look at Legendary, right? They were a smaller studio, and they got the license for Godzilla and all that, and they were doing great, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you understand? So, you know, they've learned that lesson. Like, yeah, we don't need to make these huge, we just need to do good content. And for the most part, looking at it on a whole, it's like, yeah, it's been pretty good. It hasn't been terrible, right? Some has been mediocre, but a lot has been okay. Like, yeah, that's actually good. So I think that's what's going to happen is Hollywood. I think the Disney's and the Warner Brothers, they're going to have to adapt, right? We'll see how they adapt. Like right now, Paramount, they're trying to do this merger with Skydance, right? Which is kind of interesting considering Skydance, I think, is relatively new.
I'm not
right?
familiar with Skydance.
Skydance Media, yeah, they're working with Apple TV right now,
Okay.
and they're doing animation because they hired John Lasseter, who used to be at Disney and Pixar.
Oh, what have they made so far?
Man, I can't remember.
Are they the ones who made that? I think it was called Beast something.
Beast. Oh, you talking about the wrestling with the monsters?
No, hold on a second.
The most recent one has to do with it's on Apple TV.
Skydance animation. Oh, okay, I've seen this. Yeah, so
It's man,
Spellbound.
Yeah, Spellbound. That's it. Yeah. So
Those-
yeah, so they're doing stuff for them, and I'm sure they got way more in the pipeline, like live action and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean they're doing gangbusters right now, and they're working
Oh,
on
Luck.
TV.
Okay.
And so now they're looking at basically picking up Paramount.
Okay.
So that means, which is interesting because they're working with Apple. So I kind of wonder what's the game plan, because that means they're going to be picking up their own streaming service because that's Paramount Plus. So are they going to continue to do content for Apple? Or are they going to work out a deal with Apple where Apple acquires Paramount Plus? I don't know. We'll see. So, but yeah, that's kind of fascinating. But Paramount, they're trying to, get on board with Skydance right now. So, and hopefully that'll be a net positive because that means maybe they'll take on Star Trek and give us something good. That's a whole other discussion. Star Trek.
Yeah.
They haven't been handling Star Trek very well at all at Paramount. So it's just kind of like all over the place. So, but no one's saying Star Trek is dead. So that's the positive. No one's saying it's dead. Star Wars, that's another story, right? So
I mean, we'll see.
yeah, we'll see. So that merger or acquisition is supposed to go through.
I don't really
soon.
hear a lot of
this
people
year.
talking about Star Trek either. So
No, right. That's what I'm saying. That's
I've
why-
heard more people talking about Orville than Star Wars or
Yeah,
Star Trek,
that's exactly right. Yeah, I agree.
which is
Yeah.
funny.
And Orville, listen, I liked Orville. The Orville was a good show. I mean, it started off as this. I guess it was supposed to be this parody of Star Trek, but by the end of it, I'm like, this is not a parody. This is
It's a
inspired-
comedic homage.
This is a inspired by series.
I mean, that'd be like saying The Princess Bride is a parody of fantasy movies when it's a fantasy comedy.
Well, I suppose, but it is a parody, right? But the Orville, I guess,
But a
when
lot of
it
the
came
tropes in The Princess Bride are pretty straight, though. That's the thing.
yeah, but what I'm saying is it surpassed the idea of parody and became its own thing. So it's really more of an homage to, for sure, not necessarily a parody of. Does that make sense?
I mean, well, yeah.
It's an homage that injected comedy, right? Injected humor into its storytelling. But even the humor is on par with like Enterprise or something. or Deep Space Nine. Like they had their elements of humor as well.
Not the same kind of
no,
humor though.
no, not to say it was very dry, right? It was more tongue in cheek, but I'm just saying, even the Orville kind of, you understand, like none of it was ever, at least from what I saw, I could look at it and go, that's comedy. That's straight up slapstick hilarious versus it being like, oh, there's some funny
Are
jokes
you
here.
talking about in Star Trek or in Orville?
No, in the Orville. That's what I'm saying. Like,
You mean not even the part where he orders 500 cigarettes for the guy?
yeah, that's what I mean. That's funny, but it's like it doesn't feel like slapstick comedy per se, right? Like that's what I mean. Like
slapstick
the
is like physical
storytelling,
comedy.
the storytelling surpassed all that. That's the point I'm making. It wasn't like
Yes, I
parody.
get
It
that,
wasn't just satire after satire, parody after parody. It was like, oh, they're actually telling a story here. You understand?
I mean,
These
that is
characters
true,
are actually likable, and there's character arcs, and there's setups and payoffs. That's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
understand? Like beyond just a joke. And that's what I'm saying. It surpassed all that and became its own thing. It's like I would recommend it just as a show, not like, are you a Star Trek fan? Like it doesn't matter.
No,
Just
that's
watch
fair.
it.
I
It's
get
funny.
it.
It's good. It's funny. It's exciting. It has great adventure. It has great, themes. It tackles that relate to real world, right? But they do it in a subtle way that's not so. Some of it's a bit obvious, but it's still not on the nose, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's done in an intelligent way where you can still enjoy the story and the characters without feeling like you're being preached at or hit over the head, right? And that's all I'm saying. It's kind of like, oh, this is. I mean, they even have essentially a gay couple, but they're aliens, right? And I mean, listen, I'm watching this going, yo, like this is actually really good. Like I don't even care about that dynamic, right? Because it's within the context of the story and the development, it made sense. Like it's not something you found problematic. So I don't know. I'm just saying, give it a shot. Watch the Orville. It's a good show.
Yeah.
I hope they end up making more, but it only has like 3 seasons, I believe. So unfortunately, it didn't last very long. But yeah, man, it's actually not bad.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, I guess so. That's fair because it does end very well. And it's a satisfying ending. So,
I think that's more important. If anything.
but
Because the show
yeah.
can easily go on forever, and then it's just not.
Yeah, and go
same.
nowhere. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But last thing, Ryan Reynolds says that according to the Hollywood Reporter, he's working on another Deadpool movie, but it's going to be Deadpool teaming up with some X-Men characters. But he's not specific about who the characters are.
Doesn't he do that with every movie though?
Basically, yeah. So I'm guessing he's going to try and do something that's more exhaustive, meaning, several X-Men characters and like maybe play it a bit straighter, right? So, because he even mentions in the article that Deadpool is probably going to be more of a supporting character, not necessarily the main character. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm kind of like, okay, we'll see. Maybe he's gonna try and do like X Force or something. Um, but the thing is like, is he gonna do that? And it's gonna be its own thing. Like I look at Deadpool, and it's just its own thing.
Yeah.
It's not part of Marvel Universe proper, right? MCU. So, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I didn't watch Deadpool Wolverine. I don't know if you have, but
No.
I heard it was good. Once again, like I said, I've kind of checked out. So, maybe I'll watch it. We'll see. I liked the Deadpool movies, the first two. I think they're actually really good and really fun on their own. But roping him into the MCU proper is kind of interesting. Like I said, I need to watch the Deadpool Wolverine movie and see. I heard good things though. I think the only criticism I heard was it was a lot of like it was it was a lot of jokes, right? Especially like hypersexual jokes and stuff, like and it felt like it was a little too much, I guess. But I guess that depends on who you are. But
Yeah, I mean
so,
that's sounds pretty normal for a
but
Deadpool.
it did well in the box office. Obviously, I think it hit 1 billion. So yeah, they're definitely going to do more. So that makes sense. And bringing more X Men in makes sense as well. I would like to see Deadpool and Spider Man. To be perfectly honest, that would be awesome. A
Yeah,
Deadpool Spider Man team up movie. That could be a lot of fun, right? So you know, I don't know if it'll be Tom Holland or if they'll recast Spider Man. I mean, they'll probably just do Tom Holland. Well, I don't see why not.
it would be
he was a
kind of it'd be
he's
kind
a
of
decent
annoying if they
Spider-Man.
recast him again.
Yeah, especially because he's still pretty young, but he's older now. So it'll be nice to see an older Spider Man, right? An
Yeah.
actual adult Spider Man. So that could be kind of cool. So yeah, I mean, go ahead, Mr. Reynolds, do your thing. Uh, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I think he's kind of learned that lesson with Deadpool. So we'll see. But they're supposed to be doing an X-Men movie as well. So my question is, which one will come out first?
Well, who's
And
making the X Men movie?
I don't know. That's a good question. So I mean,
Is it Marvel or is it Sony? Yeah, but
no, it should be Marvel because they have ownership of the X Men now through their purchase of Century, uh, um, 20th Century Fox.
oh,
21st
that's
Century
right.
Fox.
Yeah.
So they have ownership because that's who did the X Men movies before, right? I don't think Sony did any X Men. Sony had Spider Man and basically his Rogues Gallery, right? So they, all the other. Um, hence we got Morpheus time and
Oh, Morbius. Yeah.
Morbius time, yeah, and Craven, which I didn't bother seeing
Did
that.
you call it Morbius time?
Yeah, Morbius, yeah. But like so, but they should have the X Men proper, so that would be interesting. And they do have Spider Man, so they just don't have all of his villains. They don't have Venom and all that stuff, unless they've
Yeah,
negotiated.
that's kind of nuts. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so yeah,
That
that's
would
not
be like if you were to do a Superman movie and you didn't have the rights to like Lex Luthor. Or something.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of dumb, but
I don't
it
even know how that
shows.
happened.
It shows. Well, it's because Marvel, before it was acquired, didn't have the foresight. They just needed money, so they licensed their characters to studios. That's why we got Blade. We got the Blade movies and all that, and they were great. Then we got some Hulk, the early Hulk movies, right?
Right.
And we had the Spider-Man animated series and all. Yeah, right. They were just licensing their characters. They weren't thinking about continuity, which is kind of ironic considering this. That's kind of the foundational to comic books, but they break their continuity all the time. So it's almost like DC and Marvel are guilty of that one, like of a lot of things, but the one thing most egregious is breaking their own continuities and retconning stuff and rebooting and right. So it's
Yeah.
all over the place. So we see that in Hollywood when they decided to license their characters, they did the same thing. They were like, well, we'll license this one character, but not this character that goes with that character, right? Or we'll license Spider-Man and all of his, on some of his villains, but not all of his villains. But this villain, you know, you know what I mean? Like they never like did package deals because it's already so segmented anyway.
Right.
It just shows like they didn't even really appreciate what they had to where they approached it in a logical way because at the end of the day, they just needed money. Right? Like we need money. Give us $20,000 for this character. Give us $50,000. Yeah, and they weren't even licensed it for that much. Right? Like I'm not even exaggerating. So it's kind of crazy until Disney comes along and acquires. Right? It's like, what are you guys doing? you know, So, but yeah. So we'll see how that goes because it's kind of coming together. So,
Yeah.
a lot of fans are excited. I'm, like I said, jury's out for me. I'm like wait and see. But so far, like I said, Deadpool looks great. So I'll keep, watching that. But this team up thing, we'll see. I don't know. The Deadpool Wolverine one, it didn't really appeal to me, which is why I never bothered to go see it. So
Yeah,
especially
I
because
was
it's
a big-
referencing all these the multiverse stuff. And to say I don't care about that stuff. So
I mean, I think most people are tired of it. Jay.
yeah, I just don't care. It just seems kind of dumb. And then you have your because like WandaVision and all that, and the Doctor Strange. I was like, yeah, this multiverse stuff is kind of dumb. So that pretty much convinced me. Like when I watched the Doctor
It,
Strange.
it feels like the multiverse, instead of being used as a vehicle to explore the importance of your choices, it's being used as a excuse to make choices not matter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're misusing it in a way. It's it's very it deflates the excitement, right? It used to
Yeah.
be kind of exciting, thinking about like parallel worlds or even like parallel timelines, right? Because I'm a big time travel person. I like time travel stories, and so to see like a character go back in time and talk to himself or something, or the future, or or a parallel timeline where this choice was made instead of this choice, and now this happened, right? Like all that's intriguing, right? Because choices have consequences, But yeah, what the way they've handled it, at least in these movies, is they don't have consequences at all. They actually have no meaning at all. Like what they did with the Loki show, they made it where the Infinity Stones meant nothing. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
they
my
literally had a
goodness.
drawer just full of stones, and it's like, oh
What?
yeah, in the series, they diminished it like it's just nothing. Everything that happened up to Endgame was nonsense, and I'm like, yeah, like what are you doing? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, but you know what? It's reflective of the big two. They did the same in the comics where they would just reboot stuff and ignore continuities, ignore, that's how we got Infinite Crisis and Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? Because they're just trying to make it all make sense again, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's all it was, and they're doing the same in the movie venue now, right? They're trying to make it all make sense, and it doesn't make sense. It makes less sense. Like the more they try to fix their universe, the less it makes sense. The more crazy it gets, right? So it's like, yeah, I'm starting to get to, and I think a lot of people are to the point where it's like I just don't care. Like it doesn't make sense to care because it doesn't matter. You know,
Yeah.
and you saw the sort of the beginnings of this with the Captain Marvel movie. When they went back in time, right? And all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's, oh, this is how Shield was formed. And it's like, oh, I thought Shield was formed during Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah. I just want to point out because I was in the theater for Infinity War, I will say that. And when they did the credit scene where they revealed Captain Marvel, I promise you, not a single person leaped for joy. Everybody was confused, and they were like, "What the heck is that?"
Yeah, they're
Because
like, oh,
nobody knew what that meant. Everyone was like,
yeah.
"Okay."
But I admit, once I found out, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So I was kind of like, all right, I want to see how this Captain Marvel, because I never followed Captain Marvel,
Right,
never.
but here's the thing.
So I didn't know about what was happening in the comics.
Right, but
So
it doesn't matter. But the thing is that
no, I'm
that
just talking about. I was actually excited, once I discovered who the character was. I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of hyped. All right, what's this character going to do?
I mean,
It's
that's
an active
fine, but
character.
the
But
problem
it
is
was
that
very disappointing.
well, yeah, because where the point of those end credit scenes, right, is to get you hyped up for the next movie by teasing a specific character that they know the audience is going to care about. And at the end of Iron Man, they teased Nick Fury and the Avengers. At the end of Iron Man, was it 2? They teased Thor.
Right.
At the end, right, they showed the hammer. Everybody was cheering.
And
right?
eventually they teased Thanos and the Avengers.
Everybody
Yeah.
was cheering.
Right.
Right? But when they teased Captain Marvel, nobody cheered because either
Yeah.
they know or
Well,
they
yeah, a few. Yeah, I mean, only people who like comic book people knew.
no.
And
That listen to me. Nobody cheered. What? Nobody. Stop
or the,
making excuse. Nobody.
no, not some people. If you watch some of the videos, right, of live reactions, some people did react, but they were probably comic book people, meaning they already understood who that was. So some people did, but the problem is what they did with the character, not whether or not people
Dad, are
knew
you
who it
assuming that
was.
the theater I was in just had no comic book people?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. They probably didn't because, like I
I
said,
promise
I didn't.
you, because this was the day the movie came out. So I promise you there was enough comic book people in that movie theater.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
Nobody.
that's fine. I'm
But
saying I've seen reaction videos where some people do. Some people are like, "Oh yeah," like right. It's not as big as Thor entering the scene, right? I'm just
Well,
saying
obviously.
some people knew who it was before they, revealed it, and they were excited because some people like this character. Some people like Captain Marvel. Why? That's beyond me. But some comic book fans do. So, that's all I'm saying. But what's the bigger problem is the movie was ridiculous, right? And the character is ridiculous, and it just completely, in my opinion, destroyed the continuity of the MCU, right? Like they literally destroyed their own continuity. I was say, am I watching a comic book in real life? Because that's what comics do. Comics reboot and retcon and all this kind of stuff, destroying their own continuity, right?
It's like it was meant to be.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like symbiosis, right? It's like crazy.
How ironic.
And I'm just like, like him, Nick Fury's eye getting scratched out, by a cat. I'm like, what? That's how? What? This man's supposed to be like super agent, been on hundreds of thousands of missions, faced countless dangers, and you're telling me he lost his eye from a cat sitting in his lap? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Hands down, it's just stupid. It's objectively stupid. And they put it in this movie. They put it in the movie. It's like, what are you doing? So yeah, it's that movie is frustrating on so many levels. It's insufferable, and yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like once I saw that, I was done. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of. And then the whole what was it? The scene in the end game with the lady Avengers, I guess. That was just cringe. A lot of people claim they liked it. If you liked it, you liked it. That's your business. But it was cringe. It was objectively cringe. So because it was just so obvious. It was just on the nose. There was nothing organic or authentic about it.
Well, it's like none of those characters actually
Like-
knew each other.
Right. It made no sense. I mean, they even had what's her name from Guardians of the Galaxy, right? The one with the antennas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is she gonna do? She's gonna like she doesn't fight. Like she just touches things and makes you feel something, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but she's like marching. I don't know, it was just a dumb scene. And yeah, it's like so frustratingly pretentious. It's like, what are they thinking when they do this stuff? Like it's not a Broadway play, You understand? Like if it was a Broadway play, it would be like, yeah, right, because it's a play. Like you're supposed to kind of break the fourth wall a little bit. That's okay, but it's supposed to be a movie that you're immersed in, right? So and they're not. It's not known for breaking the fourth wall. So why are you doing it in this scene where they're literally come together and it's clearly rehearsed? Like it's not even like think about it. Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor had to go through several movies, right? Several adventures to get to the point where all three of them are standing on this crater looking at Thanos ready to fight.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't feel forced. It feels like, oh, here it is. This is where it culminates.
Right.
Right? Our three main heroes fight our main bad guy. and it didn't feel forced in any way.
No.
And then they actually fight, right? And none of them win, right? They all pretty much they kind of get their comeuppance a little bit, but then we get a satisfying scene with Cap with the hammer. Why?
Yeah.
Because they set that up in like 10 movies ago, right?
Yeah.
You understand? So and then he still loses, and we're like, oh man, what's gonna happen now? What happens? Portals open. Yo, everybody's here. Cap calls forth the hammer. He finally says it. Assemble. Did it feel forced? No, it felt amazing, right? It was satisfying because they had all this good faith built up to that moment. That's what you understand. Like that's why that works, and the Lady Avenger scene does not work because there was nothing that culminated to that. It's different if they had a movie or a couple of movies where the Lady Avenger, the female characters, somehow teamed up or had to team up for some reason, right, and work together, right? You understand what I'm saying? Maybe even it didn't even go well, right, the first couple of times because they don't know each other, they didn't like each other or something, similar to Captain America and Iron Man, right? They didn't really like each other at first, right? So something like that, and then finally here it is, this big moment, and they're like, we gotta come together now, right? This is the fight of our lifetime. And then they come together like that. It's like, yo, that's satisfying because it was built up to, it was set up, right? So now it feels authentic. That's it. That's the difference. That's why this is like, it's objectively cringe. It's not even about your opinion. Now you can feel like you liked it, and if you liked it, that's your feelings. I'm not going to negate your feelings, but objectively, it was a cringe scene, and it shouldn't have happened. But there it was. And that was the beginnings of the downfall. Like Captain Marvel movie, that cringe scene in the movie, and then you got the Black Widow movie, which came after for some weird reason, and that was barely mediocre, and they still didn't even answer whether she's a super soldier or not, which I think they should have. They should have just confirmed she's a super soldier.
Who?
Black Widow.
Oh yeah.
But they even now I don't think they have.
I didn't know if she was. I didn't know she was.
I think in the comics she is, and at least a certain version of the comics, I believe she is. It's confirmed that she is a super soldier, which makes sense. She should be. She's doing super soldier things. I mean, she's fighting aliens. Like she's going toe to toe with aliens and winning. Of course, she has to be like superhuman. Like, come on, man. So I don't know. It's just so silly. It's so all over the place. It's like, well, like I said, it's a reflection of the comics. So I guess it makes sense that it's all over the place.
I mean,
it's crazy. But yeah,
I'm just not invested enough to care.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm starting to, I've been at that point where I kind of feel like it's just not worth the energy.
No.
And plus it goes back into what we were talking about before we started recording, which is objectivity versus opinion, right? And it's like, that's my opinion, but I think it's based on objective reasoning, right? Like there is evidence that supports what I'm saying, but look, if you like what's been, they've been putting out over the last few years since 2019, right? That's fine. That's your business. If you liked the Black Widow movie, there's nothing wrong with liking that movie. And like the point I was making about like, are YouTubers going too far, right, with their criticism? Is it like rage bait or is it actual commentary, right? And I think for some it is sort of this rage bait, you know what I'm saying? It's they're doing it because it brings more clicks and views, and look, that's fine. They have channels, they're trying to make money and make a living off of this, so they're going to do what makes them money. So if that means they're going to continue to sort of lambast Disney Disney, Marvel, and all these other big Hollywood studios, especially when they're giving them a lot of ammunition. Let's not be, let's be honest about that, right? They are giving them good reason, so it's not like it's unwarranted. But yeah, a lot of people have expressed to me directly that yeah, they're kind of getting tired of the rage bait, right? Like especially when something like Thunderbolts comes out, and there are people that genuinely like it, but then they get attacked and told, "Oh,
Well,
you're harming."
who's attacking people who like Thunderbolts?
Well, other fans, other people. Like I'm
So
not
what?
talking about YouTubers specifically, but although it can include YouTubers, some of these personalities, but just in general, if you say Thunderbolts was awesome, there's going to be like 10 comments that says no, it wasn't. Like you don't know what you're talking about. You must be a normie. You're not a comic book fan. That kind of stuff. And it's like, well, that may be true, but I've met comic book fans that do like some of these Marvel movies. So, like there's comic book fans that loved the Zack Snyder Justice League movies. I didn't like them at all. I mean, you understand? But yeah, so because they're looking at it from a different vantage, maybe they're looking at it as a hardcore comic person. They're like, yeah, he actually did a good job based on this particular continuity of the comics, right? That's and that's fine. And I'm looking at it from my experience, not only reading comics, but in animated form, etc. And I'm like, well, I want more of that, the animated form, right? Their interpretation of the comic book adventures versus his interpretation, right? So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they're not wrong for liking it. Like it's not objectively bad to like something that a lot of people don't like, right?
Well, yeah, okay. So here's the thing. When Man of Steel first came out, I liked the movie. I was a teenager. I thought it was cool because, they showed, because at the time I was in the camp. Oh, they showed Superman kill Zod. He deserved it. Da, da, da. And nowadays, I'm in the camp of like, Superman shouldn't be killing people. So that's just not in his character.
Right.
At least without some sort of consequence, right? That was sort of how they dealt with it in what happened to the Man of Tomorrow, right? There was a consequence to Superman killing somebody. But anyways, but I know a lot of people who didn't like Man of Steel, and because of that scene, right? And for other reasons, obviously. But like that, other people's opinion, just because people didn't like my opinion, that did not affect my enjoyment of the movie, right? And it's the same thing for a lot of other things. Like there are games that I like that other people think are bad, right? I'm a big fan of Super Mario 64, right? Game's almost 30 years old, and I still play it to this day. I don't.
Yeah.
But it's like, but people think it's janky and outdated, and while that may be objectively true, that doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, who cares if somebody doesn't like your opinion? If someone's attacking you for, if someone online is, calling you names or saying you're a certain, you have to be stupid to like this movie. Get over it. It's like, it's an opinion on the internet. It's like,
well, yeah, I agree, but
it feels like such a non-issue.
It also gets frustrating to. It's like the question is, what happened to fandom, right? What happened to just liking something and being a fan? And even if you're a fan and you don't like something, why attack versus say, "Oh, I didn't like it because of this," and you say, "Well, I liked it because of this." And
sure, but those people are always going to exist, right? And
I suppose, but
I'm
The
not saying you
internet-
shouldn't have more intelligent discord over stuff. Like, listen, I'm stating I'm a Sonic fan. All right, I don't think there's any more divisive fan base than Sonic fans. All right, and the Sonic movies is
I'll
proof
be
of that.
surprised. Yeah.
But listen, the Sonic movie is proof of that. But I'm just saying, like, because there are people who are diehard like '90s Sonic fans, like, oh, only the games were good, everything after it sucked. People are like, oh, the adventure games were the best. People are like, oh, the modern games are great. Whatever, right? And it's
Right.
like, a lot of it some of it devolves into name calling and calling people normies or whatever, and a bunch of other stuff. But I think a lot of people are mixed, or I guess split on what the identity of Sonic should be. But it doesn't make him any less of a fan, right? Like, I guess, for example, like I did not like Sonic Forces. I think it's a bad game, right? Um, Objectively, like, it feels like they took Sonic Generations. I'm going on this whole before I go on this rant, but it feels like Sonic Generations, but like with less, care in the level design. Like, they reused a lot of assets, and I think the story had a lot of potential, but it just became really bland. But I'm not going to go into it. But basically, there's I've talked to younger kids, right, who like the game, who say that's their favorite game. I'm not going to go out of their way and be like, oh, you're a stupid kid, you're a loser, right? Because, like, that'd be stupid, right? But obviously, people do that on the internet because they can hide behind a computer screen. But
Well, they can get away with it because they're, what they call them keyboard warriors.
yeah, keyboard warriors, right?
And
Most of the people who
but-
do that, you
but
have to remember, they're keyboard warriors, and that's it. And it's like,
well, fair enough, but but it's still something that should be addressed. To point out, like, like, let's not, put people down for just liking a movie. You know what I mean? Unless you're getting into someone who likes a movie, for objectively the wrong reasons. I don't know if that's even
or is
possible.
it a thing? Like,
Like, if
I'm gonna
someone's expressing,
somebody
well,
who likes
let me finish my point. Like, if someone says, I love The Acolyte because it celebrates feminism and it diminishes the patriarchy and empowers women to live up to their full potential, go ahead and attack that person. But you understand, it's like, you want to put that out there, you're going to get people replying saying that's a garbage statement, right?
right, but that's
And that's fair, but if someone just says, I kind of enjoyed The Acolyte, I thought it was good, and that's it. It's like, you don't have to jump on and say, oh, you're a feminazi, blah blah. You understand? Like, there's a difference. That's all I'm talking about, is someone that just says I like this, versus someone who gets into the minutiae of political commentary and ideology. It's like, well, you're kind of inviting that, when you're getting into that, that aspect. But if you're just posting, hey, The Acolyte was awesome, or hey, the Thunderbolts is dope, it's like, you don't deserve to be lambasted and attacked and ratioed. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, that's
most people
kinda
online
ridiculous.
aren't just posting those one answer things. Most of them are going into the minutia.
No, they're not. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's happening where they're literally just saying, I like this movie, and they're getting made fun of and ratioed on certain posts. And that's all I'm saying. It's like,
I feel like I feel like you need to provide an example of that happening.
well, okay, I'm just going
Because
by
it's like-
what guys have messaged me personally and directly. So, and that's been a handful of people. So
Okay.
so I'm not going to share their messages.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, this is what they're telling me, and I'm kind of like, okay, and I have no reason to think they're
I think
exaggerating.
they're lying. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So, and that's all I'm saying. Like, it is out there, and I have seen it. I've even, seen comments where I'm tempted to, like, what,
Yeah. Well,
but I realized,
the thing
like,
is
I'm
that
not gonna get mad at this person for liking something, right? That
it's
I
just a lot. It's very popular on the internet to label criticism as harassment. So it's like I don't really. I usually take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and that's fair. And hopefully that's not what's happening, right? Is that they're just what they call it being snowflakes, right? Where like, bro, like, you like it, they don't like it, keep it moving, right? But the main criticism is levied at YouTubers and YouTube commentators who are, like I said, some of them are using rage bait, right? But that's
Yeah,
their channel.
that's their job.
They're a stick, yeah. So, I can't be too mad. A lot of people don't like the critical drinker, right? Speaking of, since we showed one of his videos, and they think he's kind of rage baiting. I'm like, I don't think so. I think he's
I
really what he
disagree,
said.
but
This is his opinion. This is what
yeah,
he's saying. I don't like this, and this is why.
yeah,
And you don't have to accept it, right? I tend to like his takes, even when I don't agree with a lot of his takes. I still like his videos. I like his presentation is good, and he's funny, right? He's got some good jokes in there. So,
yeah.
but even if I don't agree, like he's reviewed movie. I was trying to think of a movie he reviewed.
I didn't agree with
mentioned
his
earlier.
review on Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. Or Wonder Woman in 1984, right? Like objectively, he's right. It's not a great movie, right? It's not it has plot holes, etc. But for me, as someone who just likes Wonder Woman, the character, I enjoyed the movie. I watched it and I liked it.
Yeah,
I knew it's like watching it, I knew like some of this is kind of dumb. Like
yeah,
some of the scenes, but I'm like, I don't care. I don't know, for some reason, it's still appealing. Like watching it, it was still fun to watch. So I
mhm,
watched it, and I've watched it twice. And I still go, yeah, this is a terrible movie, but I still like it.
yeah,
Like I don't know why. I can't hate the movie. I can't look at it and go, oh, this is so bad. I'm just like, yeah, this is bad, but man, I still like watching it. Like it's fun watching Wonder Woman and using the lasso and she flies. And it's like, hey, it's great, So, like it's kind of like, yeah, I like it, but I know it's a bad movie. You know, it's objectively bad, and that's
yeah.
not going to change. Like it's going to always be a bad movie. Like it really is. Even 10 years from now, 20 years from now, like it's still going to be seen as like this movie really wasn't great. But hey, it's Wonder Woman, and she's got wings and all that, right? So but it's like I still watch his channel. I'm not offended if
Right.
he is critical of something that I actually enjoy. So I think I agree with that, the other side of that argument, that yeah, like kind of get over it. Don't take it personal just because someone doesn't like something you like, right? Especially in the realm of entertainment, right? There's a reason why entertainment exists in the way it does, where it's everything, right? It's different genres and subject matters and themes, and
Right.
so because they're trying to appeal to, each one is trying to appeal to someone else, right?
Right.
And like there's people that love reality shows, right?
Yeah.
I could care less about reality shows. I don't care for them at all, right? There's very few that I've ever even watched,
I
and
don't
they
like
usually
reality
involve like very mundane, like the one Storage Wars, right? Or Pawn Stars. Like that's the kind of
Oh, I
that's
thought you meant
that's as
like
far as I've gotten with reality shows.
oh,
It's
okay. I
like
thought you meant
stuff.
like Housewives or something like that.
Well, I mean, all of it. That's what I'm saying. But the type that I watch are like stuff that's like, very tame compared to like Real Housewives and all that stuff, right? It's like I don't watch that stuff, And that's all I'm saying. It's like, but as a genre, I don't care for it at all. Like I can live without Pawn Stars. I've been to a pawn shop. I know what it's like. I don't need to watch it on TV, or I've had storage. You know what I mean? Like
You don't want to
it's
see someone haggle for Abraham
yeah, it's
Lincoln's
like
suit?
I know how auctions work. I mean, I've seen this stuff. It's kind of cool to think, But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, but I'm not gonna watch this like every week, or like it just seems silly,
It's
like
funny you say that because when I was in the Air Force, when I was in tech school, all we were only allowed to watch two channels, and that was three, the sports channel. I want to say the news. No, we didn't really watch the news. It was either the sports channel or the history channel. and the History Channel only ever showed Pawn Stars or Diners, Drives the Dash or American Pickers, and that was it. So most of my time watching TV was just watching Pawn Stars.
Right. Yeah.
It was
Yeah. I mean,
awful.
you know, that's fine. That's pretty. That's what I'm saying. That's pretty tame. So, but it's like, look, like what you want to like. It is what it is. But yeah, I do think you should at least address like, hey, let's try to be like cordial. You know, especially when you're talking about fandoms and stuff. It's like, um, yeah, let's not try to go. Let's try not to go overboard. You know, like
I mean,
jump on bandwagons and stuff when it's not
yeah,
warranted.
I would say overboard is like threatening someone's life over a fictional thing. But like
Yeah,
if
yeah. Where you like not just like violence and or
yeah.
even just crudeness in a sense. You know, it's like sometimes it's like yo, like that's
No,
really
I get it. If you're doing like personal attacks on somebody,
yeah. It's just kind of gets to a point where it's like, bro,
that's silly.
what's wrong?
But at the same time, I think people just need to accept the fact that the internet, no matter how much people try to control it, it's still the Wild West, and it's like
Yeah,
have to,
that's
you
exactly.
just got to be tough.
It is, yeah. And at the end of the day, you can always turn it off.
Yeah,
Turn
exactly.
it off, and go. What do you say? Go touch grass, right?
Because people say out of pocket stuff about everything, right?
Yeah, I agree. But we do have to get back to like the idea of manners and etiquette. I think that's something we should still
I
strive
mean,
for.
it's hard to do that when people's morals are relative. So
This is true.
that's the
This is
problem.
true. But speaking of tales to inspire, I know you didn't say anything.
Oh,
I just wanted to say,
very clever. Oh my goodness.
see how that correlates? Not at all. But no, but I wanted to do our comic of the week again. Tales to Inspire, 65-page superhero anthology comic, and it's being run by a good friend of ours, Hero Geek, on X. So check it out. He's very close to reaching his goal. Just needs about like 60 something bucks, right? Like so. Let's help him do it. Help him get there. I've supported it myself, and I can't wait to get the book because it looks really fun, and very excited for him. So support his project, help him reach his goal, and hopefully beyond, right? And yeah, it's really awesome. The art is beautiful. The characters are really cool. We actually worked on a collaborative artwork for his main character, Paragon Prime and Alphatron. So we'll be revealing that soon enough. So it's going to be kind of fun to see that, and hopefully maybe he can offer it as a poster, or I'll offer it as a poster. We'll probably both offer it as a poster or something when we do our campaign as well. So, but yeah, check it out. It's really fun. He's trying to bring excitement back to comics, right? And bring, good, strong, courageous, and yes, manly heroes back to the comic space where they belong. So, and that's been our collective goal, and that's why we've kind of synced up and we've been collaborating, and we've kind of become online friends, right? And because we share the same values, we want to celebrate heroes and heroism, and we want to tell stories that inspire the audiences, and yeah, we want to bring that magic back that we used to feel. Like for me, for him it's comics. For me it's and actually really for him as well, comics and television, right? Like I remember as a kid growing up watching Super Friends and watching the Spider-Man animated series and watching Spider-Man and his amazing friends and the Hulk and Iron Man, and you go on, right? I've always loved superheroes, especially in animated form, and that's how our project started off, is celebrating animation and animated heroes, and that was our intent with Super Galactic Fantastic Dimension. And so yeah, check out his Kickstarter. I'll put the link in the comments so you can check it out for yourselves, and hopefully provide your support. I'm sure he'll really appreciate it. I'd appreciate it as well. And yeah, um, tales to inspire. So, But also check out our site, supergalacticfantastic.com. Um, we definitely would like your support as well. I'm trying to pull up our site right now.
I can.
And yeah, but check it out. And if you go, you can sign up to our email list and get a free 12-page digital comic. When you click on it, it takes you to our form. Just fill it out real quick, and it'll take you right to the comic. It's on globalcomics.com. So somewhere familiar. So yeah, it's not going to be spam or anything like that. But check it out. And if you once you're at Global Comics, if you want to go any further, you can go and read our first book, Fantastic Dimension Alphatron. This is my first foray into comics. It's a 65-page book, and it's an adventure that Alphatron goes on where he visits an unfamiliar planet and meets some new characters, makes some new friends, and helps to liberate that planet from an arch enemy, Calamus. And in Alphatron Origins, you're going to get to meet Calamus before he became Calamus. So, and a lot of his other villains as well, like Omegas. So check out the site, join our email list. Our goal is to launch again this year and do another crowdfund for Alphatron Origins. And we hope that you will support us and help us out to make this happen. Because once again, we're trying to bring heroes back. We're trying to excite you and inspire you and encourage you to love what is good, right? And what is good are heroes that are virtuous and brave and courageous. And yeah, so help us reach our goals. So we appreciate your support. And that's all I have for today. Anything else you want to add?
Not for me. No, I would only say, you know, don't take opinions on the internet that seriously.
Yeah, I agree. Just trying to stay grounded in the real world, and I think you'll be all right. So nowadays it may be more difficult, but we'll be better off for it. So yeah,
I don't think it is. I think people are attention is a valuable currency right now, and a lot of people are desperate for attention, but at the cost of decency. You know, it goes back to the wise words of a great philosopher named Mike Tyson. Everybody's tough
that it get hit.
until yeah, everybody's got a plan to get. So.
Yeah, I mean that's there's a lot in that, because what would you say in real life, right? Right, what you're saying online, would you say it to someone's face, right?
Yeah,
and that's if you can't, you probably shouldn't say it at all.
Don't take any wooden nickels.
Wooden nickels. Hey, what's up, Roz, man? It's been a while, man. Glad to see you join us today. We appreciate it. I hope all is well with you. But yeah, it's like yeah, if you if you can't say it in person, you probably shouldn't say it at all. I think that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean. It's like a lot of people are a lot braver when they're safe at home behind their keyboard. They talk a good game, but I always question, like, okay, would you be saying this though in real life?
Probably not.
Probably not. So, and a lot of these guys are young too. When you're young, you're more brash, because you don't know any better. So, but yeah, let's try to keep it copacetic. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us, Ross, man. We appreciate it, man. It's good to see you. So hopefully you could join us again next week. And yeah, that's all we have for today. We hope you have a wonderful day. Have a super galactic, fantastic Saturday. And we'll see. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going to say your line.
No, go ahead. You like
No, you say it. It's your line.
We'll see you around.
All right.